Welcome to Let's Dig Deeper, a podcast devoted to exploring life through the lens of shadow work. I'm your host, Steph Flores, and together we'll journey beneath the surface into the parts of ourselves we often avoid and the truths that shape how we lead, live, and connect. This is a space for raw reflection, radical honesty, and the kind of conversations that invite transformation. So take a deep breath, get present, and let's dig deeper. What if I told you that one of the most powerful forces shaping your choices, your risk, your dreams, isn't the world around you, but the voice inside of you? Imagine standing at the edge of something you really want, a new opportunity, a dream, a bold move. And right when you lean forward, a voice in your head pulls you back. Not the world, not other people, you. It's crazy, right? That some of the harshest things we hear in our lives are never even said by anyone else. And today we'll unpack the truth about your inner critic, where it came from, how it's shaped your life, how to recognize it in real time, and most importantly, how to build a new relationship with it. Because here's what I believe. Your dreams don't die because you aren't good enough. They die because you believe the wrong voice. Where were you? What were you trying to do? Or were you trying to launch your podcast? Were you starting a creative project? Was it an interview or job that you were applying for? What were the stakes? Was it fear of judgment and fear of failure, fear of looking foolish? Was it loud? Was it mocking you? Or was it logical and maybe a little subtle? Was it saying you're not ready? Who do you think you are? There are already a million people doing this. That's what my inner critic was telling me. Those were all of the things that I was experiencing. And I remember I was in my car, excited to come up with a name for the podcast and creating an Instagram page and looking at different podcasters and how they were setting up their Instagram and connecting with producers because, man, wouldn't it be cool if we recorded it in a studio and all of that stuff? And I went through all of those things in my head and I would jot some of the things down, and then that voice hit. My inner critic telling me I'm not ready and having me question my identity and making me feel like, is another podcast really needed? And how is yours going to stand out from everyone else's? And man, was that voice strong. It was loud. And being honest, it delayed me months. I remember getting the equipment and getting the mic, getting the software and joining webinars to learn how to launch a podcast and downloading the free material that was being offered. I remember all of that. I remember recording my first episode months ago and still not hitting publish on that specific episode. And it was because of my inner critic. It was because it was so loud. It was because I believed what it said. And I remember feeling paralyzed. I felt anxious. I felt like it wasn't the right time because there had to be a better time to do it. And then it never happened because time passed and there was never a perfect moment to hit publish. So I never did until now, where I decided that I wasn't gonna listen to my inner critic anymore. See, in that moment, my inner critic felt more real than my potential. And for a long time, I believed it. And maybe you have a version of this too. Maybe every time you reach for more, that voice shows up first. So today is about recognizing it and remembering that it doesn't own you. So the inner critic is a protective mechanism, a mental habit formed to prevent pain or embarrassment or even abandonment. It often originates in childhood, where love, approval, or safety were conditional. Maybe you had critical parents where nothing you did was good enough. Or maybe you just experienced high pressure growing up where failure wasn't an option. Or maybe you experienced some bullying or some embarrassment where now you don't want to stand out because it's not safe. Maybe it was some cultural pressures, right? Where perfectionism and comparison were evident. So your inner critic, it's not your enemy. That inner voice only knows the version of you growing up. It doesn't know who you are today, right? So when we talk about the inner critic, there are different types. There's the perfectionist that says, if it's not perfect, it's worthless. There's a comparer that says, everyone is doing it better than me. There's the shamer that says, you're embarrassing, so why even try? There's the doubter that says, you don't have what it takes. So which critic shows up for you the most? Even though the world and you have changed completely, which voice do you resonate with most? Which one do you listen to? Because we all listen to it. We all have it. We know it's there. How do you respond to it? When does it show up most for you? Is it when you try something new? When you're visible online? When you're about to have an honest conversation? The inner critic that shows up for me the most are the perfectionist that says if it's not perfect, it's not worth doing. And looking back, the amount of things I didn't do because I didn't feel it was perfect is sad. The amount of things that I allowed my inner critic to hold me back from due to perfectionism. Or the shamer that comes after the thing that I did. So maybe I didn't listen to the perfectionist, right? And I did it and I went for it. Then the shamer appears telling me it shouldn't have even done that. Or the doubter that said, didn't really have what it took. So I don't know why you did it. And it's crazy that in my life so often, those voices were leading the way. They were driving the conversation. They were driving the decision. And that's not to say I've listened to them all my life, because there are so many different scenarios where I was so confident that I did what I did and I knew what I was getting into and I stepped forward despite what my inner critic was saying and I did it anyway. And I've absolutely no regrets because I didn't listen to the doubt and I didn't lean into the doubt. I leaned into my dreams. I leaned into my desires and I leaned into my future. And I can't go back and say, man, I miss so much. And what if, right? Those what ifs don't get me anywhere. What I can do today, though, is decide to change the voice that I'm listening to. I can decide to move my inner critic from the driver's seat to the passenger seat, maybe even to the back seat, where they're not steering my ship. They're not steering my life. They're not holding me back from my dreams. So I stripped it of its power. And how much power does that voice have over your life? Right now, think of the last time you felt doubt or shame. What exact words did your inner critic use? What did it sound like? Was it harsh? Was it cold? Was it scared? Was it embarrassed? Right? Awareness is always going to be the first key. We can't heal what we don't even realize is running the show. So if you don't accept or realize that your inner critic is leading you and guiding you, you can't heal what you don't even realize. So some practical steps that we can do to shift our relationship with the inner critic is to give it a face or a name, an age. And my inner critic may sound like the 14-year-old version of me who is terrified of looking dumb in front of her friends or in front of her classmates. So when I talk to my inner critic, it's saying, I hear you're scared and I appreciate you trying to protect me, but I'm not 14 anymore. I can handle this. So it's going back to that inner child and reaffirming them that who you are today isn't who you were, and that the version of you today is capable to do it despite fear, doubt, and opinion. If the critic is a scared inner child, you're the loving parent now to that inner child. So then it's providing reassurance and saying you're safe and you're allowed to try and even fail. I've got you. And sometimes the critic's fear points to areas you can strengthen though, right? Maybe your critic is saying you're not prepared. And maybe you take a moment to reflect on whether or not that's true. And maybe you say, okay, what's one thing I can do today to feel more ready? Right? And if you can answer that question and there's something that you can do to prepare a little more, your critic helped you. But if you are confident that you've done everything to be ready, then stay ready and move forward. If you can just say, man, I'm safe. I'm allowed to try even if I fail. And I've got me. Like, this won't break me. This isn't the end. And if it fails, then I learned something, because learning is still winning at the end of the day. The goal with our inner critic isn't trying to get rid of it. It's to act even while it's whispering to us. And I still feel the critic every single day. I feel it in moments at work, in meetings. If I have to stand before a large crowd, it exists. I recognize it. Gosh, even up until hitting record on this episode, I felt it. I heard it. And I had to make a decision on whether or not I was going to listen to it. And now that I recognize it, I know how to respond to it. So I did two things in response to my inner critic today. I shut everything off and I just took 5 minutes and I did a breathing exercise and I truly just drowned out the noise and I relaxed my body. And then I wrote, and I didn't write a lot. And I'm going to share what I wrote. And it says, I've come to the sad reality that some people in your life will only hold on to the version of you once were. They won't see or accept the growth, the effort for better, the pursuit of more, or the slow but steady change that was made over the years. They will only communicate to a version of you that no longer exists. And if you don't protect your peace in those moments and set the necessary boundaries, your inner critic may try to convince you that that version still exists. Don't let it. Own your growth. Just because a different version of you once existed doesn't give it the right to remain an active part of who you are today. So stop listening to it. Just like you put boundaries in place with the people around you, put boundaries in place with your inner critic. It's not an enemy. It's not here to hurt you. But it's trying to be the version of you that you no longer are. So when it whispers to you, you have a choice of whether or not you want to be that version that no longer exists, that version of you that's inactive, or if you want to be the version of you today and move forward towards growth and move towards more. Do the things that you want to do, the things you're passionate about doing. We've heard it before. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. Because here's what I believe. Your dreams don't die because you aren't good enough. They die because you believe the wrong voice, and only you can change that. So until next time, keep digging deeper. Keep choosing you.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with AutoQuote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.